Thank you, everybody. I very much appreciate your willingness to let me come by this afternoon and share a few thoughts. I do want to spend the time answering whatever questions you have. I think you've probably been listening to a lot of speeches the last couple of days, but I do want to start by thanking Mary Beth and Harry also for their friendship and for having me here. They and my Uncle John were very close friends back basically during the revolution that brought them all here as law students. And we've tried to, I think, perpetuate those traditions in my family, and I know they have in their family as well. So thanks for having me, and thanks all of you for being here. Mary Beth went through my bio, so I'm not going to do that again. Here's what I will say. I'm going to go back to Washington tomorrow after this long spring break or summer break. And what we're not going to do is the people's business again. We're not going to enact anything to do with guns, even though more than 50 people were killed in mass shootings in the last month. We're not going to put even the election protection legislation on the floor, even though a bipartisan group of senators, the majority in our Senate, would like to vote on that legislation. It's hard for me to imagine, by the way, a Republican who wants to vote against the election protection legislation. I'd like to know who that is, but we won't know because of the blockade that Mitch McConnell has developed and designed. And I've been in the Senate now for 10 years. I spent my life outside of politics, in business and as a school superintendent. The time that I've been there is long enough to figure out how to get some stuff done, but also to understand why none of the big stuff ever gets done. And if we don't change the way our politics works in this country, if we don't do it in a way that we can overcome the immobilization of our exercise in self-government, which is what the Freedom Caucus and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, after all, really represent, none of the promises that any of these candidates, including myself, are making on behalf of the American people or the Democratic Party are actually going to get done. And it frustrates me because we can't afford another 10 years like the last 10 years. When the vice president says, you know, if we just get rid of Donald Trump, it'll all go back to normal. I was there. I showed up when Barack Obama went there. I have a huge amount of respect for President Obama, huge amount. But the last 6 years of his presidency, we couldn't get anything through the Congress. And it was completely immobilized unless McConnell was getting what he wanted. I told McConnell once, I said, you know, Mitch, I have a book coming out. It's called, if anybody wants to read it, it's called The Land of Flickering Lights. It's not about me, it's about our democracy. And I said, Mitch, it's pretty tough on you. And he said, well, you're running for president. I guess that's something that you do. And then I said, well, I don't, by the way, have much of a relationship with Mitch McConnell. I don't want to imply that I do, or if I have anybody here think I'm bragging about that. But I then had another thought. I said, Mitch, come to think of it, you're probably the only person in the Senate that will like my book because I write things in it like Mitch McConnell is immune to give and take unless he's taking everything, which he almost always is. And I would never want us to be as malevolent or as cynical as McConnell is, but we need to be as strategic as McConnell is, and frankly, we haven't been as strategic as he is on judges or on climate or the other issues that are concerned to Democrats in this election. And I think our answer lies outside of Washington. I do not think Washington will fix itself. I think that we have to build a broad coalition of Americans that will allow us to win in purple and red states. States like Colorado, where I've won twice, even when the Republicans were winning at the top of the ticket and winning all across the country. It's states like Colorado and Iowa and Arizona and New Hampshire and Maine and Arizona, if we have any hope of overcoming what's going on in Washington. Electing a Democratic president is not enough. We have to elect a majority in the Senate, and we have to hold on to the majority in the House of Representatives. And we have to have an agenda that will allow us to do that. And one of the reasons why I'm in this race is that I've been concerned that the agenda that has been presented to the American people is not necessarily the one that's going to win us that majority. In Colorado, you learn that you don't say one thing in a primary and something else in a general election. You don't tack left and then hope you can tack back to the middle. It doesn't work. You don't say one thing in rural parts of the state and another thing in urban parts of the state. But on the economy, which should be our number one issue, on education, which is very important to me and I think very important to this country, it's something we should be talking about as Democrats, on health care, how are we going to finish universal health care, and on climate. I think we can propose an agenda, I have proposed an agenda, that I think creates the opportunity to win in these swing states, because I think it's that important. And so I just want to, just by way of introduction, say, I believe that's really fundamentally what's at stake in this election. It's not enough to beat Trump. We have to figure out how to govern the country again. And we're not going to be able to govern the country again if you got a bunch of tyrants down there, which is what I call them, the so-called Freedom Caucus, who are mobilizing everything anybody is trying to do. We have been governed by a minority of the minority for the last 10 years, and that has to stop. And there are no shortcuts to it. There are no shortcuts. Whether you're for getting rid of the filibuster or not, or packing the court or not, or whatever it is, there are no easy answers here. The answer is to win races in hard places, and that does not mean it's a call for lazy moderation. It's just a call to be smart about the way we approach these issues so we can attract the kind of support that will allow us to win these races. I will now shut up because I've told you everything I wanted to tell you in case I get hit by a bus on the way out of here. Now you know at least what I think the theory of the case is. I'm happy to take questions or comments or criticisms on any topic. As Mary Beth said, I was an urban school superintendent for almost 5 years, so please ask me the stuff you don't want to ask another politician because you think you might hurt their feelings. You cannot hurt my feelings. They were all beaten out of me a long, long time ago, all the way in the back.